All right, our first unit of study is going to be about geographic principles. So, in this unit, we will explore how we use geography to examine relationships between people and places. This unit will build the foundation for geographic principles, which will support each of the following units of study. So, what that means is for this unit, we're not going to be studying a particular region or continent. We are going to really look at how we should study those continents and those regions so that when it gets time to study them, we kind of know what to look for, what patterns we should see, what certain things mean. So, um, our essential question for today is how have advancements in technology affected the study of geography? Remember, you should be taking or making your Cornell notes. So, this is the question that should be at the top. This is what we're trying to answer. How have advancements in technology affected the study of geography? So, the first thing we need to talk about, well, what is geography? Again, let me see if I can. Here we go. What is geography? Geography is the spatial study of Earth's surface. Where you're going to hear that word a lot, space and spatial. It just means the area. All right. So we're just looking at the Earth's surface and how much space it's covering, what is on that space that we're looking at. We're not talking about like planets and stuff. That's not the type of space that we're looking at. So we're going to mainly focus on these two types of geography, physical geography and human geography. So physical geography is the spatial study of natural phenomena. So that's like the environment, what's on the earth. So rivers, mountains, landforms, weather, climate, soil, plants, things that have to do with what's on the earth. But we're also going to look at the human geography, which is how people interact with Earth's surface. So it's the study of human activity and its relationship to the Earth's surface. So it's how people and the environment interact with one another. Um, so within geography, obviously there are maps, but what you need to know is that and I think we talked about this a little bit in class, the um, act of making a map is called cartography. So that's map making. And it has always been a vital discipline for geographers. So from the beginning, before geographer was even a thing, people were making maps in order to study the land. But as we've progressed and we were like, we need to know more about this land, not just the land, but how people interact with it, what's on it, does it make people do certain things? Geographers now also study space and time in relation to that land. So, in relation to the physical landscape of Earth and human activity, we look at space and time. Now, remember, this isn't like the stars and stuff, it's space. So, it's like an area um, of land. And then time, how it has changed over time, what could we expect it to look like over a period of time. And because maps are such a powerful graphic tool that allows us to illustrate those relationships, cartography and geospatial technologies have become important in modern sciences. And so, what we're going to look at next are some important geospatial technologies that geographers use to study geography, to study space and time and the physical landscape and the human landscape. So the first one you've probably heard of, the GPS. It stands for Global Positioning System. And believe it or not, the GPS isn't just something that's on your phone. Okay? The GPS is actually in the sky. It's in space. And it is a system of satellites orbiting the Earth and communicating locational information to GPS receivers. So these satellites that are orbiting the Earth like send information to a GPS receiver. Your phone could be considered a GPS receiver because it's getting information from these satellites. satellites, all right? And so what do we use GPS for? We use it for finding absolute location, and we use it for navigation, all right? It can tell us how to get somewhere, where something is. But we pretty much use that every day. Um, so that's one modern geospatial technology that geographers use is GPS. The next one is called remote sensing. Now, remote sensing is the use of cameras or other sensors mounted on aircraft or satellites to collect images of the Earth's surface. All remote sensing is taking pictures from space so that we can compare land over time. All right. So it could be used for determining land use, so figuring out how this land is being used, monitoring environmental changes, monitoring weather. It can be used for all sorts of things. Over here, I might kind of have an example. I believe this is Kenya. I don't exactly remember what country. But what it is before and after a tsunami hit, which a tsunami is like it's like an earthquake in the ocean, so it causes the places to flood and giant waves to kind of crash over. So this bottom picture was in 2003, and then after the tsunami, they used the satellite again to take a picture and kind of see how the land has actually changed. And so you can tell that after the tsunami, the land is completely wiped out. It almost looks desolate, like nothing is there. When before it was very lively, and you could tell people were living there. Now it pretty much looks abandoned. And so that's one way that remote sensing is used, but that's just like taking pictures from the sky. The last one we're going to talk about is called GIS, Geographic Information Systems. Now, this shouldn't be confused with GPS, all right? So what GIS does is it takes the information from the GPS and it takes remote sensing and it kind of puts them together. Okay, so it's a computer system or software that stores, analyzes, and displays information from multiple digital maps or data sets. And so what it does is it takes, and this is kind of an illustration over here, but it takes various maps and kind of stacks them on top of each other so that you can see patterns. Okay. So, like, you can tell right here that they're stacking like this customer base, so people who are buying things, and they're putting it on top of like a road map so they can tell like where people are going shopping, right? They're putting it on top of an elevation map. You can see, does elevation affect where people go shopping? And so it just kind of takes a bunch of information and it stacks them on top of each other so that you can see patterns. All right. So GIS is used for analysis of crime data, effects of pollution, urban planning. It's used for so many things. An example of how it could be used is if you got a map of um, crime. Okay, and so you put a map of, the most criminally active places in the state. So the most criminally active cities, and maybe you on top of that could put the average years of education that these places also get. And so you would be able to see, okay, well, these people they're kind of dropping out of school, and that also has a really high crime rate. And so you would be able to see patterns like, okay, well, it looks like, according to this map, that places that students are dropping out of school have a higher crime rate, so maybe those are related, and so that you can find patterns. Um, so those are the three main geospatial technologies that are used. And so you should have a pretty good idea about what those are, what they're used for. So thinking about those geospatial technologies, you should now be able to answer, how have advancements in technology affected the study of geography? So you should be able to answer that question in your summary of Cornell notes. If you have any questions, email me. If you're still a little confused, go back and rewatch the video so that you can understand how advancements in technology have affected the study of geography.